The Treasury Department implementing new sanctions against North Korea and the companies doing business with the rogue nation. 3 Chinese firms responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars of transactions with Kim Jong-un among those targeted. The move comes a day after President Trump named North Korea a state sponsor of terror. Joining me now, former UN Ambassador John Bolton, American Enterprise Institute Senior Fellow, Fox Business contributor, and Ambassador, it is good to see you. These sanctions, we have talked about the efficacy of sanctions. We, as I recall, have never found an instance in which they actually worked. Is there some new evidence we should consider?
No, I mean, I think adding new sanctions adds to the pressure. There's no doubt about that, certainly politically. But these sanctions on North Korea, these individual targets, are never effective, because if you sanction the ABC company, it only takes a day or so before the XYZ company springs up doing exactly the same thing. I think the designation of North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism was the right thing to do for other reasons, but North Korea has resisted economic pressure successfully in the past. It will do so here again.
And we are now about 40 days away from the end of this year. The South Koreans have just said they believe that the North Koreans will have an ICBM with a nuclear warhead that can reach the United States by the end of this year, some 40 days. This is a very different proposition than the one we thought we were facing.
Yeah, we're out of time with North Korea. And, you know, Susan Rice, Barack Obama's national security advisor, very helpfully wrote about 6 or 8 weeks ago that, gee, after 25 years of trying to negotiate North Korea out of its nuclear weapons, guess we failed. And thanks, Susan. And guess now we just have to live with North Korea with nuclear weapons, and we'll do containment and deterrence as we did in the Cold War, as if North Korea is just like the Soviet Union, and as if we want to go back to duck and cover drills for elementary school children. I think the president's inherited a real mess. I think the same could be said about the Iran nuclear program. And he's got to make some very hard decisions if China doesn't step up and really do what they have the capability of doing. And whether it's the end of this year, as CIA Director Mike Pompeo said a short time ago, a matter of months, even if it's the end of next year, as these things go, we're out of time.
And as you say, as these things go, even though I can think of no other things quite like these, that seems a dangerous proposition if we do not understand when that ballistic missile will be ready with a nuclear warhead to fire on American targets.
Well, precisely. That's why you can't wait till the last minute. Our information is incomplete with respect to North Korea. It's radically incomplete. And that's why 25 years of Democratic and Republican administrations alike basically saying, we've got time to negotiate, there's more time. There's not any time left. And so the notion, as the State Department keeps saying, that maybe we'll get North Korea back to the table is a formula that guarantees North Korea will be able to strike any target it wants in the U.S. with a thermonuclear weapon in a very short period of time.
We're out of time, but one last question here tonight, if I may, and that is, does it seem to you the State Department is trying to cover up in the corrupt agreements that were made to keep uranium-1 away from the prying eyes of people concerned about national security, rather than simply, in the instance of CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment, simply to rubber stamp the idea?
Yeah, I think there's a lot we don't know about how this decision was made. I think there are credible allegations of efforts at corruption by the Russian government, and I think a little transparency here from the State Department, out of character generally, but it would be a good thing for the country.
Yes, and I don't suppose anyone would hold their breath on that prospect.
I wouldn't. Ambassador
John Bolton, as always, great to have you here.
Thank you, Lou.